So going back to the beginning, when you had your first psychology referral, what were your mood difficulties at that time?
I think I was quite anxious. I wasn't sleeping very well. There were occasions where things that I would be able to do normally, I was finding difficult, like, because I've always had quite an active life, and it's been quite a social life as well. Kind of progressively over that period of time, and this kind of predates the stroke, I would quite deliberately avoid situations. So, like, if you wanted to go to a party or something like that, I would invariably say I wasn't feeling well, so we wouldn't go to the party. So there are a whole series of social situations that I was opting out of, which seemed to be the right thing at the time to do, but it was completely out of character. I mean, I'm quite a social being. I like company. I like being surrounded by company, and I became aware, or more aware, of the fact that I was avoiding these situations. And there were one or two occasions where I would be doing things that seemed perfectly normal, like travelling in a train, and suddenly feeling very panicky with no explanation for that. So the next time I had to think about a train journey, I was thinking about the panic that I felt previously. And all of that was quite disturbing. I remember turning up at the first meeting at nowhere and thinking, what am I going to get out of this? And what am I prepared to say, which was the other thing. Because I had no idea what kind of questions were going to be put to me. So I thought, I need to try and treat this with a kind of reasonably open mind, but it was half closed, I have to say. So again, it's that odd paradox where you know that this is what you should do, but the response is slightly different from that. So I think initially it was like, I'll give this 2 or 3 sessions because I think that's the right thing to do, but I'm not entirely convinced that it's going to make any difference.
And did your opinion change after the first session? How did you feel afterwards when you walked out the door?
My expectations, I suppose, were low, and I came out of it thinking, well, I'll give it another couple of weeks and see how it goes. But that was, I suspect that was more out of the expectation that other people had of me, because I'd signed up for this. So like my partner, I could hardly turn around to my partner and say, I'm not going to go back next week, it was a waste of time. Because it wasn't, but it didn't really seem to me to make that much difference to me after that first visit.
So when did you notice a change in yourself? What stage did that sort of happen?
It was actually on the 3rd session, and there was a question about grieving, about the grieving process. And it was, you know, it came up, and we had a discussion. And I remember sitting in the car before I was just, because I live not far from the hospital. And I actually sat in the car for about 10 minutes, and it was like as if somebody had put a light bulb on, you know. Suddenly, some things began to make, there were kind of connections there that I could understand. And that made me think a bit more about some of the questions that had cropped up in the first couple of sessions. But I suspect maybe I wasn't entirely truthful about my responses. But it wasn't a case of telling lies, it was just not actually understanding what the...
Not opening up fully.
Yeah. But largely because I wasn't quite sure what I should be, not what I should be saying, but what my own feelings actually were at that point. There was a kind of picture of myself that I could now see. And that was not the personality that I was when I'd walked in the first place. And that made a tremendous difference. Because it was like, you know, some of the things that I'd said, I couldn't make connections between them and there were obviously connections that could be made, and it was only when those were put together that, I mean, I was moving in that direction. I mean, once this process talking about, you know, the kind of grieving process, I could actually make sense of that, and I began to kind of piece together elements of what my own experience had been like. I could understand that with that kind of template, if you like. And it was at the final session when that process was described in a bit more detail that I really kind of recognised the value of having to go through this kind of journey, in a sense, from being very closed, in a sense, to be something that's been opened up a bit more. I don't want to use the word honesty, because I don't think I was being dishonest about anything. But my feeling is that I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand, in a sense, why I couldn't understand what was going on. I know there's an odd sort of way of expressing it, but I felt as if I should have been able to, and because I couldn't, it became really puzzling and very depressing. And that, I think, when that process was described in a way that began to make me ask questions of myself in a slightly different way, that helped a lot. That helped enormously.